Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Moreover, who better than she would love her children more than life itself? What woman would be more just than such a one? Please continue watching for the practical wisdom of Stoic philosopher Gaius Musonius Rufus, vegetarian.
I love animals, but then I'd turn around and eat one. So I thought, I should probably change this. David Verberg, vegan.
When traveling through the magnificent Swiss Alps, greet the friendly locals with a cheerful Grüezi, which means hello in Swiss German, one of the many languages spoken in Switzerland. I'm Conrad. The kind-hearted Swiss people are concerned and care for our animal people friends with some of the highest animal people welfare standards in the world and join you in following the benevolent vegan lifestyle. May all humans soon realize that treating all Earth's co-inhabitants with compassion is the key to a pandemic-free, peaceful world. Welcome to Everyone Should Learn Virtue from the Teachings of Musonius Rufus, vegetarian, part 1 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. Gaius Musonius Rufus was one of the great Stoic philosophers of the Roman Empire. He lived in the 1st century CE and was born in Volsini, an ancient city of Etruria which is now part of present-day Italy. His philosophy focused on the study and practice of virtue. He believed that everyone is capable of being virtuous. However, people who had not learned the skills of ethical living could not be expected to live without error. Thus, he lived and promoted a simple and frugal lifestyle, which included the learning of self-control, modesty, courage, and benevolence. He was a vegetarian and taught that being mindful of one's diet was a vital virtue. His students included Roman noblemen, senators, and future philosophers. In the years following, his wisdom continued to have an impact on later Stoic philosophy, as well as early Christian moral thought. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, was his most notable student, whose principles were deeply influenced by his mentor. Although the works of Gaius Musonius Rufus are mentioned in the writings of Epictetus, most have been lost through time. However, his philosophical teachings in the form of aphoristic sayings and discourses were preserved by his students. This was later translated and included in Cora E. Lutz's book, Musonius Rufus, the Roman Socrates. Today, it is a delight to present the discourses entitled, That Women Too Should Study Philosophy, and Should Daughters Receive the Same Educations as Sons, where the wise philosopher encourages everyone to study the practice of virtue. That women too should study philosophy. When someone asked him if women too should study philosophy, he began to discourse on the theme that they should, in somewhat the following manner. Women as well as men, he said, have received from the gods the gift of reason, which we use in our dealings with one another, and by which we judge whether a thing is good or bad, right or wrong. Likewise, the female has the same senses as the male, namely sight, hearing, smell, and the others. Also, both have the same parts of the body, and one has nothing more than the other. Moreover, not men alone, but women too, have a natural inclination toward virtue, and the capacity for acquiring it. And it is the nature of women no less than men to be pleased by good and just acts, and to reject the opposite of these. Let us examine in detail the qualities which are suitable for a woman who would lead a good life, for it will appear that each one of them will accrue to her most readily from the study of philosophy. In the first place, a woman must be a good housekeeper, that is, a careful accountant of all that pertains to the welfare of her house. It is my contention that these are the very qualities which would be present particularly in the woman who studies philosophy, since obviously each of them is a part of life, and philosophy is nothing other than knowledge about life, and the philosopher, as Socrates said, quoting Homer, is constantly engaged in investigating precisely this, whatsoever of good and of evil is formed in thy halls. But above all, a woman must be modest and self-controlled. She must not be a slave to desire, not be contentious, not lavish in expense, nor extravagant in dress. Such are the works of a virtuous woman, and to them I would add yet these: to control her temper, not to be overcome by grief, and to be superior to uncontrolled emotion of every kind. Now these are the things which the teachings of philosophy transmit, and the person who has learned them and practices them would seem to me to have become a well-ordered and seemly character, whether man or woman. As for justice, would not the woman who studies philosophy be just? Would she not be a blameless life partner? Would she not be a sympathetic helpmate? Would she not be an untiring defender of husband and children? And would she not be entirely free of greed and arrogance? And who better than the woman trained in philosophy? And she certainly of necessity, if she has really acquired philosophy, would be disposed to look upon doing a wrong as worse than suffering one, as much worse as it is a baser, and to regard being worse off as better than gaining an unjust advantage. Moreover, who better than she would love her children more than life itself? What woman would be more just than such a one? Now as for courage, certainly it is to be expected that the educated woman will be more courageous than the uneducated, and one who has studied philosophy than one who has not, and she will not therefore submit to anything shameful because of fear of death or unwillingness to face hardship, and she will not be intimidated by anyone because he is of noble birth, or powerful, or wealthy, no, not even if he be the tyrant of her city. For in fact, she has schooled herself to be high-minded, and to think of death not as an evil, and life not as a good, and likewise not to shun hardship, and never for a moment to seek ease and indolence. So it is that such a woman is likely to be energetic, strong to endure pain, prepared to nourish her children at her own breast, and to serve her husband with her own hands. Would not such a woman be a great help to the man who married her, and a good example for all who know her? Should daughters receive the same education as sons? Once, when the question arose as to whether or not sons and daughters ought to be given the same education, he remarked that trainers of horses and dogs make no distinction in the training of the male and the female. In the case of humans, however, it would seem to be felt necessary to employ some special and exceptional training and education for males over females, as if it were not essential that the same virtues should be present in both alike, in man and woman, or as if it were possible to arrive at the same virtues, not through the same, but through different instruction. And yet, that there is not one set of virtues for a man and another for a woman is easy to perceive. In the first place, a man must have understanding, and so must a woman, or what pray would be the use of a foolish man or woman? Then it is essential for one no less than the other to live justly. Let us continue with the discourse entitled, Should Daughters Receive the Same Education as Sons?, where even children are encouraged to learn the importance of virtue from a young age. Should daughters receive the same education as sons? Gluttony, drunkenness, and other related vices, which are vices of excess and bring disgrace upon those guilty of them, show that self-control is most necessary for every human being, male and female alike. For the only way of escape from wantonness is through self-control, there is no other. Perhaps someone may say that courage is a virtue appropriate to men only. That is not so. For a woman too must have courage and be wholly free of cowardice, so that she will neither be swayed by hardships nor by fear. No more it is necessary for women to be able to repel attack, unless indeed they are willing to appear more cowardly than hens and other female birds which defend their young from creatures much larger than themselves. If, therefore, something of this courage is lacking in other women, it is due to lack of use and practice, rather than because they were not endowed with it. If then men and women are born with the same virtues, the same type of training and education must, of necessity, befit both men and women. For with every animal and plant whatsoever, proper care must be bestowed upon it to produce the excellence appropriate to it. Is it not true that, if it were necessary under like circumstances for a man and a woman to be able to play the flute, and if, furthermore, both had to do so in order to earn a living, we should give them both exactly the same thorough training in flute playing, and similarly, if it were necessary for either to play the harp? Well then, if it is necessary for both to be proficient in the virtue which is appropriate to a human being, that is, for both to be able to have understanding and self-control and courage and justice, the one no less than the other, shall we not teach them both alike the art by which a human being becomes good? Yes, certainly we must do that and nothing else. For all human tasks, I am inclined to believe, are a common obligation, and are common for men and women, and none is necessarily appointed for either one exclusively, but some pursuits are more suited to the nature of one, some to the other, and for this reason some are called men's work and some women's. But whatever things have reference to virtue, these, one would properly say, are equally appropriate to the nature of both, inasmuch as we agree that virtues are in no respect more fitting for the one than the other. Hence, I hold it reasonable that the things which have reference to virtue ought to be taught to male and female alike, and furthermore, that straight from infancy they ought to be taught that this is right and that is wrong, and that is the same for both alike, that this is helpful, that is harmful, that one must do this, one must not do that. From this training, understanding is developed in those who learn, boys and girls alike, with no difference. Then they must be inspired with a feeling of shame toward all that is base. When these two qualities have been created within them, man and woman are of necessity self-controlled, and most of all, the child who is trained properly, whether boy or girl, must be accustomed to endure hardship, not to fear death, not to be disheartened in the face of any misfortune. They must in short be accustomed to every situation which calls for courage. Now courage, it was demonstrated above, should be present in women too, furthermore to shun selfishness and to have high regard for fairness and, being a human being, to wish to help and to be unwilling to harm one's fellow human is the noblest lesson, and it makes those who learn it just. What reason is there why it is more appropriate for a man to learn this? Certainly, if it is fitting for women to be just, it is necessary for both to learn the same lessons which are in the highest degree appropriate to the character of each and supremely important. If it happens that a man knows a little something about a certain skill, and a woman not, or again she knows something and he not, that suggests no difference in the education of either. But about the all-important things, let not one know, and the other not, but let them know the same things. If you ask me what doctrine produces such an education, I shall reply that as without philosophy, no man would be properly educated, so no woman would be. I only urge that they should acquire from philosophy goodness in conduct and nobility of character. Now in very truth, philosophy is training in nobility of character and nothing else.
I definitely believe that eating vegetarian helps. Michael Wardian, vegetarian, on recovering after marathons.
Loving viewers, It was a pleasure to have your company for today's Words of Wisdom. Coming up next is SM Celestial Clothes, Fashion of the Golden Age, Part 8 of a multi-part series, right after Noteworthy News. May the celestial melodies give you inspiration and upliftment always.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/WOW.